Economist here. Cool, we got 12 of you up in here already with the 7 likes. Thank you so much for hitting that like button when you come into the stream. The algorithm will pick up the video and start spreading it around, which always makes the video a lot more fun. Talk a little bit about the Stock Pulse Silver Symposium before we get started on video. For those of you who don't know, I'm heading down to Vegas here at the end of the month to go to the Stock Pulse Silver Symposium to go give my insight into the economy. Do me a favor, in the comments section of this video, put down what it is that you think would be the best topic for the uneducated economist to key in on when I go down to the Stock Pulse Silver Symposium, since I have no idea what it is that I'm going to be talking about once I get there. For those of you who would like to join in on that, there is a link down in the description of this video that you can get your tickets to the Stock Pulse Silver Symposium. All right, so anyhow, talking about homeless, right? So we have covered quite a bit of the homeless issue here in the last few months in some of the videos that I have done, talking about like what it is that can be done to help the homeless. And now everybody really wants to help, at some point in their lives, they kind of see out there and think that, man, I have the ability to maybe help out. And a lot of times we're thinking monetarily, we're thinking, okay, so we can give them stuff or give them shelter or give them food or money or whatever, and thinking, okay, this helps. Well, yeah, it definitely alleviates some pain that for the moment, but does that really help? I mean, does it help any kind of long-term benefit to the people who are living on the streets, to give them money, food, or anything like that? Even shelter is not necessarily helping if it's only temporary. Here you put somebody into a house and you're like, here, you got a roof over your head. But there's towels, there's dishes, there's stuff. Like if you lived on the street and all of a sudden have a house or an apartment or something, but you don't have anything else, it doesn't make that really that much better. You're still just, got a dry, warm place, I guess, to be, so it's that better. But you don't have all the conveniences of being in a home. And so when we think about like helping the homeless, in my mind, really helping the homeless is dealing with the issue from a more mental positioning, right? Because it's really their own thoughts and actions that have got them to where they are today. However, government doesn't see it that way. Government wants to help in a lot of other ways, and one of them is to throw a lot of money at the issue and see if it helps. And that's something that the Portland, Multnomah area has gone through, right? Multnomah County. And I found this article today. This is an opinion piece coming out of Oregon Live, and I left that down in the description as well. And in this opinion piece, it's a gentleman, Daniel DeMello, who I believe sits on the chair of the committee that is like the oversight, I guess, of this. Well, actually, here, let me just read you this. Because I think this is a pretty good quote that kind of explains a lot of what I'm trying to say here. All right, it says, and this is out of the link, like I said, that I leave down in the description of this video. It says, unfortunately, despite intensive efforts by myself and the rest of my committee, I cannot vouch for the effectiveness or accountability of the joint office. Although county code states that the Budget Advisory Committee must be provided technical and clerical support so we may fulfill our mandate to actively participate in county budget development and review, give advice on policy considerations, and participate in operational and strategic planning, county officials have obstructed our efforts throughout the past year. So here they are trying to figure out how it is this money has been spent and how it is that how effective it is that they are using this money to combat homeless, and they have been obstructed in their data. Like they're not like, hey man, you can't get the data or you can't get access to this data, which makes me really wonder. It was just like, well, what's going on with the money then, right? I mean, if it's not going to be transparent, it's just like, well, here it went, yeah, we dumped it out there and we spent it real frivolously. I mean, at least you could say it, but if you're obstructing the data, that means you're trying to hide where it is that money actually went. Okay? It goes on to quote here, we do not have the data to state with confidence whether the Joint Office's $279 million budget approval in June will result in any real change in the number of people living on the streets. Right? It was just like, we can't even, like, all this money out there. Of course, I believe the $279 million is like the bigger budget, not just for the homeless part of things. Anyway, It goes on to say the crisis has only deepened. That was quoted after that quote I just said. And then it goes on to say here, when we questioned which landlords, this is really what it gets to me, right? It says, when we questioned which landlords and property management companies were the top recipients of rental assistance vouchers, the county remained silent. Right? They wouldn't say. And so when I think through some of this stuff, and I think, okay, originally when I heard this story, I was like, this is upsetting, right? This is not the way this money should be spent. I mean, here you are, you're going to take a whole bunch of money. I can't remember exactly what it was, 14 million. I got the original videos in the link of this description. You can go and check out the articles in those, but I to fact check me, but it was something like 14 million, if I remember right, to help 300 people. And if I got my numbers right, it was somewhere around 50,000, 40 to 50,000 per family. I think that works out to, in order to put these people in houses for like a year. And I thought to myself, holy moly, like what kind of house are you putting these people into, right? That it's like, a $5,000 house or something. So I got to thinking like, well, that's utilities and all the other stuff as well. So when we think about like this money being spent, what is really happening here? Because like, how is it that you're going to filter through and find only the best people who are going to be put into these houses? Because really, you can't just put anybody into this house. You put somebody into this house who's mentally ill and they're going to just trash the place, right? That's not a benefit to anybody. And so you have to filter through, and only like the prime recipients would ever get into this house, which doesn't really help the homeless issue, right? I mean, those prime recipients, the ones who would most likely be the ones to like take care of the house and actually benefit and use it as a step to advance themselves, are not the ones who are the problem. I mean, those ones, I mean, they're down on their luck. Yeah, they need some help, but they're not the ones who are the major issue from homelessness. Homelessness is a much more deep-rooted problem than just saying, hey, you just need a little hand up here for just a second so that you can get your life back together. That's not what that does. So when we think about what happens here is that when you put all this money out there and you take these houses off the market, well, now you've got hard-working families out there who are struggling really hard to try and make it, and these opportunities have now been taken away from them and given to somebody who is now on the streets, right? Who are not working for the money. Right? I mean, they might go get a job later on, but at the point they're then homeless and they can't make it, and that's why they were given this piece of property to live on, or in, or whatever. And that takes away from somebody who can actually work and provide for something like that. And then we go to find out that later on, it's very difficult to figure out who it is that this vouchers actually went to. So if we think about it from a conspiracy theory mind, which I'm not saying this is what happened, but it could very well be happening, since we don't have clarity on who it is that was receiving this money. Who's to say that the property owners weren't selected, to receive this money as opposed to the people it was meant to benefit? You see where I'm getting at? It was like, here we have this homeless issue. How do we deal with the homeless issue and show that we're doing something to effectively deal with the homeless? We're going to put this big number out there, but really it's not going to do anything to help homeless, right? I mean, the mental issues don't get solved by giving somebody a place to live in for a year. In fact, it might even get worse when you kick them out of the house because they can't afford it anymore. But yet, here's these landlords receiving this funding, right? Pretty interesting. I mean, how it is that all this money can't be traced really, and it shows up possibly in somebody's pocket, but we don't know whose, and who did it really benefit. Yeah, see, you where I'm getting at. I mean, I don't want to be accusatory, because I mean that's not what I'm trying to be here. I'm just saying that if you don't show clarity, then it leaves the mind up to wonder what happened with this money and who really got it, right? And then who did it really benefit in the end? All right. 10 minutes into this, let's see what's going on. Thank you so much for hitting that like button when you come into the stream. Let me use the other hand so I don't block the camera. All right, all the way up to the top. Hello, hit the like button. Hello, dishes. Hey, Simon, thanks for sharing your thoughts. Well, thank you. Thank you for being here. Good afternoon from Lakeland, Florida. Good afternoon, Kevin. All right. Okay. Hey, Kevin. Just shared the stream with a few people that look at my rare Facebook posts. Well, thank you for sharing the video, man. Anybody who shares the video is helping to spread the uneducated economist and support me in a way that I can truly benefit from is to share my videos. Thank you so much for doing that, All Nighter. Helping the homeless actually directly helps people. No, I mean, if you want to help the homeless, I say, like I've always said it from a long time ago, adopt a homie, right? Is there somebody out there that you know that needs help with something? They need food for whatever, they need blanket. You can help people that way, right? You can help people directly, right? But by sitting there throwing taxpayer money or whatever it is that's going in this broad scheme of things and nobody can trace where it's going, I don't believe that's helping. And then on top of that, really, even by helping people with food or material things like a blanket or something like that is only a temporary relief. Really helping comes down to figuring out how it is that they ended up in the streets in the first place, and it's probably due to some kind of mental issue. It's probably due to some major childhood trauma impacts that then leaves them in a feeling that they just don't fit into society in a way that gives them the ability to go find a steady job, pay bills on a regular basis, all that other stuff. They just mentally can't see themselves doing it, so therefore they just live on the streets and drink because that's a much easier life for them. Right? If we could figure that part out, they could just go and work for themselves and make themselves a decent life, right? You can't provide that for them. You can't like mentally fix people with money, In fact, money generally messes people up. Success cannot be handed out and must be achieved, right? And Old Nighter posted that a few minutes ago. All right. Hey man, too bad I can only watch for 30 minutes. Okay, well, we'll try and get in as much content as we can for 30. Finally caught alive. Yellow Cake Maker, thank you for being here. Diversification from random people. Silver is insurance. Piss off half the crowd. Alright. Based Rooster. Hey Simon, hey Brody. Alright, hey Matt, what's happening? Have you ever read about urban moving systems get arrested on 9/11 for the dancing and celebrating after the planes hit the World Trade Center? Um, yeah, it seems like I did hear something about that, but to be honest, I kind of, I dove in, did, I dove into a lot of conspiracy theories for a long time, and I tell you, when you dive into some dark stuff, like some really, some pretty messed up stuff, um, I don't really want to go back into that kind of thinking and line of thinking and New World Order, like, take over and looking at all the little pieces of it. I've been there and it can be very overwhelming and depressing, right? Um, I see a lot of what's happening out there, I've talked about it before. There's a lot of stuff out there. And when people ask me what I think is the biggest conspiracy theory out there, I think it's, the understanding of who and what a sovereign citizen is. I think when people really understood what that is, then a lot of the issues that we are facing within this world would be a lot different. But, trying to spread that information is going to get you in trouble. Anyway, let's moving on. The rooster is saying, "What's up?" Oh, you guys are laughing at the rooster. I don't even hear him anymore. He just goes off all the time. Helping those less fortunate is always a good thing. Well, absolutely it is. Absolutely. Adopt a homie, right? If people aren't scared of being homeless, then there's nothing you can do that will help them. No, I think they're scared of being homeless. In fact, I think they live in a life of constant fear and defense and worry and frustration and all that. Like, I don't think there's ever a time in which that they don't feel like pressure and depression and all that other stuff going on. I think they live in fear constantly, right? But it's a difference if, what most people don't realize is that the reason that they are where they are is because of the story they tell themselves. And unfortunately, these people tell themselves for whatever reason that they grew up or life they lived or whatever acts they've done, they've told themselves that this is the life that they deserve. They don't like it, right? They wish they had a different life, but if you had a better life, if you felt that you deserved a better life, then you would be pursuing things that would do things in your life that would give you the ability to advance. But if you don't feel you deserve it, then you will get exactly the life you feel you deserve, right? I mean, that's for anything in life. No matter what you do, life is a reflection of how you're feeling and behaving, right? So whatever life that you are existing is because those are the thoughts that you have at the time, right? Many people are just like, man, I've been stuck on this couch for 2 years. I can't figure out what it is I'm supposed to do. Well, definitely don't do again tomorrow what you did today, right? Because if you do tomorrow thinking and playing the video games or doing whatever, and you plan on doing something better with your life tomorrow, but you just do the exact same thing you did today, then you don't expect to have anything change, right? I mean, the moment that you get a reflection on the inside, or the moment that you say, okay, I'm going to change the inside so that I can see a reflection of that, right? Well, then you start acting and behaving in ways that is that life that you want to live. I mean, you know, I said it before, like on my YouTube channel here. I had always dreamed of having a YouTube channel, being able to, discuss economics and have a conversation with people and then be able to get paid for it. I mean, I thought that would just be amazing. Way before I ever started the YouTube channel, I thought that would be cool. I told my wife I'd love to be able to speak in front of a group of people and then meet Ron Paul, right? I mean, all these things started to happen within my life, but it was because I believed that I could actually do it. And it wasn't until the day that I actually started a YouTube channel and started pursuing that life that I actually was able to achieve some of those things. But it was because of, I was getting a reflection of exactly how it is that I was feeling on the inside. I didn't know it at the time, right? I mean, anything is possible. It's funny how you can manifest just about anything you want in your life, but you have to believe, not necessarily believe it. It doesn't have, I don't think it has anything to do with belief. I think you actually have to feel it. Like you actually have the feeling of already having achieved the things that it is that you want in life. And then it just naturally life lines up so that it can occur that way. It's really kind of, I know it's kind of weird sounding like that because I've heard other people say this and it didn't make any sense to me. But now that I've actually achieved a certain level in my life, that I thought, man, I look at this, it's absolutely amazing. Nobody in my life, none of my family, friends, anything ever thought that I would ever have a YouTube channel with 126,000 subscribers. But it's literally you know, the belief that I could do it, and then, feeling like I've always had it. Like once I started doing the YouTube channel and I started catching traction, it just felt so natural to be there. Like at first it didn't, even for example, like the live streams here. Like I prefer to do live streams now more than I like doing regular videos. In fact, if I could just do live streams from now on, it would be like I would be totally okay with that. But at first, when the very first live stream I ever did, I was so nervous about doing it. I was just like, oh man, I can't go out live in front of all those people and do a video. I mean, what is everybody gonna think of me? What if I screw up and stutter and say something that was silly or whatever? But after I finally let that all go and it just became natural, now I feel like I can just do live streams all the time. I don't have to, in fact, it feels almost uncomfortable to do a recorded video now. It's weird. It's like I just don't feel right to do it. Anyway, that's the thing. Like most people don't understand that. So, and it works in completely opposite too. Like if you have depression level thoughts and you're constantly thinking of how the world is screwing you over and how you can never catch a break on anything, and your conclusion is that you're going to always be in a messed up position, then life will definitely give you that sort of outcome, especially since those are the things that you see, those are the things that you're going to end up pursuing. And so it's a matter of like literally changing the way you feel. How do we have? Oh, so funny. My friend Kimmy is calling. All right, sorry, Kimmy, I have to call you back. All right. So what was it again? Actually, that was a good example. Okay, so we were playing bingo last night, right? And my friend is sitting there saying that they had never won. Like I've come to this game all this time, I've never won, never won, never won. And I said, okay, well, let's manifest you a win. Let's make it happen here. And they were like, what do you mean? I'm like, just feel like as if you already won the game. Like, just feel like the next game you have already won it. It's yours. Just feel that way. And she goes on, like, what, pretend? And I'm like, no, don't pretend. Just feel it. Just feel as if, like, the feelings you would have as if you had won. Just do that. Here, let me write your name right on the prize, right? So I took out the prize and I wrote her name on it. And they were kind of making jokes, right, about this. That game went by. She didn't win. The very next game, we stopped talking about it, all that other stuff. She wins the game. Like literally, I'm not joking here. She literally wins the very next game. And I was just like, there you go. So what happened was that she felt it, right? Again, it works like magic. I don't understand. Maybe it was just luck, whatever you want to call it, right? But she had the feeling of it, and then she let it go. And that's what you do. You take on the feeling of it and then let go of the importance of it, and then boom, right? The universe starts lining up and saying, there it is, right? Some people like to call it God. That's cool. Like, I mean, I'm not much into religion, so I don't talk about religion in that way because I just really am talking out of place because I really just don't know. Now, my wife, on the other hand, she can talk some religion, right? She knows the Bible really well, and she schools me all the time when I try to say something about it. She's like, nope, you're wrong. That's not the way it goes down. And I'm like, okay, so I just like, I feel very uncomfortable talking about like anything religious because I just don't know, right? I didn't grow up that way. But I do kind of understand the principles behind it. And if you think about it in that fashion, it was pretty cool to watch it actually occur right there in front of me, last night, just by taking it on, having that feeling, and then letting it go. And then boom, it happened, right? Man, why did I get off on this? When we're talking about homeless. So anyway, homeless can do that too. They can just start manifesting their reality by seeing themselves off of the street, right? Seeing themselves in an apartment, seeing themselves at a day job, seeing themselves paying the bills, seeing themselves doing the things that are like what it is that they want in life, seeing themselves off of the drugs and clean of alcohol and all that other stuff, seeing themselves with, friends and status in the community and stuff like that. I mean, you can see yourself into that reality, but you have to see yourself and believe that that's what it is that you have going on in your life and feel it, right? Once you do, it'll just like things just start lining up to make it happen. All right. Let's see. Your government loves you. The government does not love you. Do the dance, take it back. Okay, people still don't understand what money is. Amazing. Yeah, and that's what's funny. It's like, the more I study the BRICS nations and studying like the idea of a BRICS currency or a new currency or central bank digital currencies and stuff like that. It's really amazing. What it really comes down to is what it is that's going to be able to provide liquidity. You got one that's going to provide value, wealth, security, like security, wealth, and value, and then you have another one that's going to provide liquidity, right? And that's really like the two ideas of currency. Like one of them is money, right? Silver and gold, because I gotta say that for Lord Humongous, or else he'll school me on it, right? So, so you got money, which is like gold and silver to store a value, something that has, but it doesn't really provide the great liquidity that central bank digital currencies can provide. Central bank digital currencies can provide liquidity right now. Everybody can do transactions, no worries about it. Gold is very cumbersome. It's difficult, right? Especially if you're talking in the physical form. So when you start looking at money in those kind of fashions, right, or at least currency, because I don't want to, again, I don't want to piss the Lord Humongous off because again, he'll school me on what money really is. So anyway, but that's kind of a way to kind of look at it, right? And how it is that liquidity, like to be able to do transactions, which one of the currencies or money, right, is going to be the best suitable, trustworthy, accepted. That's really what it ends up coming down to. And if there's one that's already fulfilling that, it's going to be very difficult to knock that one off of its pedestal, meaning the dollar, right? Because there's nothing else that even remotely comes close. People talk about all this other trade that's taken place outside of the dollar. Yeah, but it is so, I mean, it's happening, right? I don't want to deny that it's happening because there's evidence of it everywhere, but the amount that is happening comparatively to what the dollar is doing is so insignificant. It's very small. So is it going to lose its world reserve currency status? Yeah, at some point it will in the future, but it's not going to be tomorrow or the next day, right? And probably won't even be in the next decade. It would take a very significant change in course of events to last for a significant amount of time before it would eventually lose that world reserve currency status. Not saying it won't, just saying that's like it would take time, right? And it doesn't happen overnight. Man, good coffee today, yeah? All right. Time says Michelle Obama love. Oh, okay. I'm not going there. All right. Robert Breedlove put out a quick video on Iran. Jeez. Money's speech from Atlas Shrug. I hadn't heard it before. It was powerful. Oh, well, that'd be cool. Go check that one out. There were Supreme Court rulings in 2019 about the removal of homeless encampments on public land. Says something about you can't do it unless there is a place for them to go. Yeah. Yeah, I heard about that too. In fact, one of the guys who kind of helps out with the shelter, or the help with like rehabilitation kind of stuff, um, he was telling me about that very thing. Like, if you shut down like a place for them to go, then that gives them the ability to sleep on this, like gives them a place to camp out, right? But you can't remove them from camping in public areas or lands or whatever it is if they have no other place to go. So you have to almost provide it for them, right? Is that kind of the idea? I mean, I'm not trying to speak for it. I'm just saying I think that's what the idea behind that was. All right. Wayne in the house with awesome comments. Yeah. Many municipalities don't run homeless shelters. What money? All right. The cities will pay to have the problem removed. Get volunteers to work it. You mean debt, Simon? See, I told you he was going to school me on that. All right. What's the difference between accounting and money laundering or credit laundering? Morocco and a 7.1 earthquake. Okay. Color of a pencil. Okay. Urban moving system ended up being Israel intelligence. The fact that they were celebrating indicates prior knowledge of the 9/11 attacks. Well, I mean, again, like I mean, there was a lot of stuff. Like really, after doing some of the research and stuff like that, it was Building 7 that did it for me, right? It was just like after like the BS stories coming out about how come Building 7 fell. I was done. Like I was just like I am. This is all. This is just a crock. Everything that they're talking about is completely made up. It's fabricated, and there's no. I mean, there's truth mixed in with all this, but it's just like it is. I was done. Like I was too frustrated with it at all anymore, and all the stuff that I had already learned about New World Order stuff was just like piling on top of it. So I don't need any more proof. Many don't mind living how they do. No, you're right. I mean, you're absolutely right about that. I mean, there's many people who, I mean, okay, you think about like if you have some money coming in, you get I don't know, you get a few $100s even. I mean, I don't know how much it costs to live on the streets, but it probably doesn't cost much if you really know how to budget your money as far as being able to find food, and then really the only thing you need to buy after that is your little provisions that that make your life that much more comfortable walking around, I guess. But you get to do whatever you want with your day. Like nobody else in the world gets to do that. And it's not like you get to do whatever you want. You can't like fly to Tahiti or whatever for the afternoon, but you can do whatever you want with the day. Like there's nobody out there who is saying anything about what it is that you can do with this exact minute. I mean, talk about ultimate freedom, right? You don't have any obligations for the rest of the world. You don't have anything that's intrusive. It's like ultimate freedom out there. And I mean, not that I envy that by any means. All I'm saying is just like when it comes to some people who might prefer that life, they very well could prefer that life. And I'm not trying to say that, that their decision to live that way is incorrect. That's not what I'm getting at all. I'm talking about the people who are depressed who don't want to be on the streets, right? Who can't figure it out, who don't understand anything about what's going on, don't know what it is that they're supposed to be thinking in order to get themselves off the streets. That's more of what I'm talking about. But you're right, there's plenty of people who are like, nah, I just don't want a job. I don't want to pay the bills. I don't want the responsibility. I would much rather sit down by the river and drink 40 ounces for the rest of my life, right? And there's probably a time in my life I thought that would be pretty cool. But anyway, I don't now, but I think back on that, and I probably would have. Anyhow, UE, do you think the only two car companies other than Chinese car companies that will survive in the future will be Toyota and Tesla? I can't see how any companies can compete with China. Hmm. No. I mean, I think that at some point that if it just came down to this two car companies, that competition would just start bringing in other car companies. And I mean, it was funny. Like I remember my dad telling me when I was growing up. Like he said that he thought for sure that there was only going to be like 5 breweries making beer in this country, right? Because like it was like this consolidation of beer companies, and it kind of made a lot of sense at the time. But then, really the desires and wants and needs of the people when it came to beer consumption started really shifting, and like craft beer started really taking and started coming into play. And now all of a sudden, like, there's, tons of beer companies out there. So, I mean, I think really it's going to come down to not necessarily like how it is that they can compete, but really what it is that the wants and needs and desires of the people, the consumer, is going to be at the time. So that's really what's going to happen. Now, it doesn't mean that there isn't going to be a consolidation of some sort, like you might predicting, but again, that might actually spawn the idea of new car companies coming out to compete with, products that are more suited to what the wants and needs of the people are. You know, everybody wants something different from everybody else. Uh, Sorry, got fingerprint on my glass. There we go. Deja vu. All right, welcome, Crosser. Oops, Crosser. All right. Never forget Building 7 didn't implode itself. That's right. That's again, like, I mean, that was probably one of the things I'm like, come on, what's going on here? And the more I dove into, trying to do some research in it, then it really started like just leading me down other paths and stuff. And I was just like, I mean, I have to think, like, I'm glad I went through that phase of doing all that research into that stuff, because I probably wouldn't have been able to see a lot of the stuff that I can see now within the economy if I hadn't done that, right? A lot of people, they, because I don't bring it up and I don't talk about it, they seem to think that I don't understand like New World Order kind of stuff, right? And that's not the truth at all. There was a time that I was very much immersed in that sort of line of thoughts and thinkings. But again, what I'm learning about manifesting realities is that if you are to put that sort of line of thought into your head, where these sort of government entities or whatever, these huge powers, families or whatever are coming down to rule your life, then that's exactly what's going to end up happening, is that you're going to conduct yourself in a way that these people do end up ruling your life. But if you don't include them into your thoughts, right, into your daily actions, into your beliefs and that's understandings and stuff like that, but then again, I mean, it's kind of hard if you know who they are. Like once you learn something, it's hard to unlearn it. But again, it's more of like being aware of your thoughts that are happening, and making sure that the thoughts that you are thinking at the time are ones that are going to put you on a path of the desires that you are looking for. Again, that's how you manifest your realities, is actually believing in the feelings and having of the life in which that you are looking for. So if that includes the New World Order and all the frustrations that come from that, then guess what? You're going to manifest that into your reality. I thought about it. It was just like, if you didn't think about politics, if you didn't think about economies, you didn't think about anything but growing flowers and how it is that you can grow better flowers. And that's it. That was your only thoughts, right? And the people who came over who wanted to discuss maybe how it is that you did grow flowers, your entire world would be nothing but flowers, right? And pH levels of soils and fertilizers and composting and stuff like that would be your entire life, and everything would be, the entire world that you would exist in would be just that, flowers, right? And that would be, and that could be your entire existence, if that's, if you could figure out a way to make that happen. But if you make your entire world about politics, then guess what? Everything that's within your world will be, this view of politics, and every action that you take and everything that you do will have this political mindset in mind. And then, decisions coming from, votes and, whatever, these decisions or elected officials will then now start to conduct your decisions on what it is that you plan on doing with your life, and then the realities of that will start to shine through. um, Again, that's one of the reasons why I got politics out of my life. It was just like, I mean, it's, a lot of people say like, you don't follow politics, you don't understand what's going on. It's like, that's not true at all. That's really not true. It's, following politics can be very misleading, and it can be very frustrating within itself, especially when they talk about things that never occur and never happen, and just more or less just about accusations of what the other side is going to do. None of those things are beneficial to your life. Like, how do you use that information to say, okay, now that I got this information, I put it into my thoughts, and how do I now conduct myself in a way that this information is going to benefit me? I couldn't figure it out. Like, a lot of people say, oh no, it's all kinds of ways you can figure out how to invest and all kinds. I couldn't figure that out. Like, to me, I lived that life. I was poor. I was broke. I could not figure out anything. The moment that I abandoned all that other stuff, said just follow the money, start a YouTube channel, talk about economics as the best you understand it, and see what happens. And now I feel much better about life. I feel like I've gained a lot. I'm moving, I'm progressing, I'm doing all this other stuff. And that was like, okay, I have to thank myself for getting out of politics to do that, because I think it was really holding me back. All right. Do you think military funding to Ukraine will be ended if a Republican candidate becomes president? I don't know. I really don't. Okay. While helping the homeless individually is great, it's a feed versus teach a man to fish philosophy. However, on a greater scale, the benefits outweigh it and will help the community greatly. Yeah. Um, yeah, it's so true. Like, I mean, there's really, I thought about this so many times. It was just like, I've gone down and I've talked, like, that's the thing. I've talked with a lot of homeless people, and it was just like, hey, what is it that you need? Like, I mean, I'm sitting in a position right now. I mean, I can't buy you a house or a car or anything, but I can go get you stuff. What is it you need? And all of them do this, right? They don't know. They don't even know what they need, It's because it's all up in here. They need therapy. That's what it is. All right. Many government programs don't really help the needy, only those that would provide those services. Ellie, maybe, oops. All right. Ellie, maybe just redirect to another source that benefits the next administration. No government money to the homeless is a community issue. The community should figure out its problems of why do we have so many homeless. Well, the reason we have so many homeless has more to do with the separation between the rich and the poor and the Cantillon effect, and how new money comes into the system. This is something that's not going to end. I mean, that's another thing. Like, there's no way of solving this problem in the fashion that they're doing it, because the problem exists in a way that it's like, I mean, the way to deal with the problem, in a sense, is for the people who have the money to stop diving into luxuries. That's how you fix the problem, right? But that ain't going to happen, because the people who have the money want to enjoy that money, so they start buying things and enjoying services that start driving up the cost of living around everybody, and then they don't have a job that can fulfill the needs of a regular standard of living. Like, they just can't do it off of a regular day job. And it's because of how that new money is coming into the system. There is the separation between the rich and the poor will not reverse, right? Not in Portland, not, I mean, well, it could. I'm not saying it won't. It could. But the way that the money is coming into to places like LA and Seattle and Portland is how the Cantillon effect is really described, right? When the new money comes in, the people who have first access to that money get to spend it at face value, and they start consuming more, right? And as they consume more, it starts depriving the people at the end of the line of the ability to consume. And as they have to suffer with their wages remaining the same, but all this consumption is driving up the prices, they now forced into homelessness or to leave the area. And if they can't find any place to go to, right, then they just end up on the streets. And that's really where the problem comes in. There's no fixing that, right? And that's what I'm saying. Like, if you could fix the mental issues with people, then they could at least attempt for themselves to try and conduct themselves in a way that can get themselves out of that predicament. But there's no way that you can create an economy in Portland that is going to say, oh man, we got all these homeless people here and we got a bunch of rich people who have driven up the prices of everything. And how is it that we, you know, make it make the ability happen that the regular working class job can now provide for themselves inside of this, you know, high cost of living environment. I mean, there's no fixing that, right? I mean, it's just the way it is. And so understanding it from that level means that you have to do it from a different approach, right? I mean, you can't, there's no way that you're going to get the rich elitist people here, or you know, the wealthy people to say, to get them to stop spending. That's like, there's no way. Like, don't buy BMWs, don't buy fancy houses, don't go buy, you know, any of those luxury things, don't spend your money, right? And I mean, that's a ridiculous thing to think, right? Nobody's going to ever do that. So what it really comes down to is you have to work at the individual person, right? The person who is on the streets, to say, hey man, what is your problem? What is it that you are thinking? What is it that happened in your life that you need to overcome in order to now get you off the streets and progressing in a way that is now, you know, beneficial to not only yourself but society and everything else, right? That's how you help. Like, you can't help any other way. There's nothing else you can do. Yeah. And I mean, I guess like rehabilitation centers are a help, like getting people off of drugs, but that doesn't fix the mental issues, right? It actually exposes more of them and makes, you know, people even far more dangerous, because now they're sober and they're pissed off and depressed, right? A correlate to your comment just now is that you should always try your hardest. Well, yeah, I mean, you know, I think about it all the time. Like, you know, there was a time when like the Uneducated Economist was really taking off and it was doing well. Of course, you know, I mean, you have to think lumber was really driving this channel. And that was cool. Like, I mean, what talk about it? Like, what an awesome thing to have happen. Like, it sucked for everybody who needed to buy lumber, but it was awesome for the Uneducated Economist and the YouTube channel because of how much attention it got. And with all that attention, you get a lot of ad revenue. And with that ad revenue, it really changed the way like my life went down. You know, since then, you know, not a lot of people are like really caring what's going on within the lumber industry. It's not a really big deal anymore, and it's not like I even talk a lot about lumber anyhow because it's a boring topic. So really, you know, the channel isn't nearly as popular as it once was. But I don't change the way I do things, right? I mean, I was doing this channel before anything. I mean, this is what I wanted to do with this channel from the very get-go. I didn't have any expectations or wants or needs or anything else coming from it other than to have a discussion with people about economics, and whatever came from it comes from it. And still I feel that way. I mean, you know, the ad revenue hasn't been nearly as good as it once was, and I hear other YouTubers are going through that as well, so I'd imagine it has something to do with the amount of companies who are paying for advertisement. But it doesn't change anything about the way I do stuff, and it's not going to change the fact that I'm still going on a speaking engagement, and I still plan on growing the channel as much as I can, you know, for the rest of my life. But that's something that I have put and committed to myself. Other people can commit and do all kinds of things of such levels, right? There's people who can, you know, do that for anything in their life. I watched a guy, you know, self-taught himself how to work on computers, right? And became a computer tech. Like, I watched him do it over the course of a few years. He was just so fascinated with computers. He was always interested. And he says, man, I'm gonna have a job where I get paid to do this. And he just started taking courses and doing whatever he could. And the next thing you know, he has a job as a computer tech. It was really, you know, it was in him. He just wanted it. The more you think about something, the more you pursue those things, the more, again, you know, the universe or God lines things up for you. Yeah. And I don't mean to say that like, you know, sarcastically by any means. I just like, again, I already kind of defended myself on that part. All right. White Underbelly have spent about a decade interviewing people on Skid Row in LA for his YouTube channels. He said you can't help the homeless until they are ready to give up drugs and alcohol. I totally agree with that, you know. And again, drugs and alcohol are probably more have to deal with a greater issue of some other, you know, trauma issues within their life that they're trying to cope with. All right. I have a few trusted homelessness that I assist who've opened up. It's painful learning how easily some of them ended up where they are. Some lost business, family, drugs, alcohol, all need compassion. Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's, a different, everybody tells a different story on how they got there, and yeah, I mean, it's sad because, I have friends, like friends that I grew up with. Like friends, like, we all sat around at one time in the exact same spot talking. We all worked, we all had an apartment, we all were doing our thing, and, they're on the streets now, right? And, it's kind of weird. It's like I don't feel like bad or guilty or shame or anything like that. But I do feel some sort of like, I don't know, like I feel like almost sorry for having been able to do what I have done when they couldn't or didn't or whatever. Like I don't know. It's like I know it's not anything to do with that, but it's just this weird feeling that I get when I see them on the streets like that. It's like, man, we all stood on the streets. We all stood at the same place one time when we were kids, like at the exact same time. And there you are, and here I am. So it's sad. It's like it's heartbreaking. All right, I choose to only care for helpless animals. I mean, everybody, needs to be some of you too, I guess, Um, I'm about that life too. You come on here and brag now, that's all? Wow, really? Do you guys think I'm a bragger? Is that what I am? Is that what I've turned into? Oh my, really? That sucks. All right. I mean, I guess that's the meaning you're giving it, but I didn't think that's what was happening here. All right. Never forget to stock up on Marlboros. Uh, the city of St. Cloud, Minnesota is working with the private sector to get the homeless camps cleaned up. The private sector is getting paid to house them, revolving door style. All right. Like the video. Yes, please. Thank you, Brody. If government wasn't giving money for Section 8, there would be higher rents. Don't dine and dash. Okay. That manifestation stuff is gambling mentally. No, it's not. I let me think about that. Is it gambling mentally? No, I don't believe that. I don't think it's gambling mentally. I mean, I think it's gambling if you like, you're trying to manifest $1 million so that you can do drugs. I think that's gambling or something like that, but that's not the way it goes down. Like the whole idea behind it is just to literally feel as if you already have it and then the universe providing what it is that you feel. It's all about energies, right? And, there's people like laugh when they hear this stuff, but there is no way that you can walk, like, I don't know, maybe you can't, but I walk into a room and I can tell whether or not the mood is cheerful, if it's sad, if it's, whatever. I mean, doing bingo has really given me a lesson in energy levels of people, right? Because the moment that I walk into a bingo game, I'm sitting there at a bar, everybody's having their own conversation. There might be, 30, 40, 50 people up in the bar there. I set up all the bingo game and I wait for a particular time to start, right? And nobody there is connected. Nobody there is talking. I mean, they're talking within their own little groups, right? But nobody there is really, connected to everybody else, not in any way, shape, or form, except for this, they're being in the same room. The moment that I light up and I start doing the calling of bingo and I get everybody's attention and they're all focused in on me, all of a sudden everybody is on the exact same page. They're all telling jokes. They're all interacting with each other. All of a sudden there's 50 people who are now connected to one another, right? And I created that. I made it happen. It's all of a sudden just by getting everybody's attention and they all put their attention on the exact same thing. And by doing that, everybody all of a sudden was connected to one another. I understand how that works, right? And that's just one little tiny aspect of how energy levels and manifesting realities happen. Because from that point on, now I can create a future for these people of entertainment and all kinds of stuff. And it's just a simple form of it. right? But it's a matter of getting them to feel the way they should feel in order to understand how it is that this next few moments are going to be, right? And part of that is to have everybody thinking and feeling the same way at the same time. Okay? They do this with mind control too. It's easy enough to do with mind control and in mainstream media and all that other stuff. It's not like, once you kind of understand it a little bit better, it's about hitting people with emotions and getting their feelings lit up, and then hitting them with facts and stuff like that. I mean, I see it happen all the time. All right, positive yet pragmatic. I think I can fly. Yeah. you know it's so funny because, like, somebody will say something like that, and then may not realize it or may not see it, but here sometime in the future you'd be thinking of that. It's just like, no, I'm just going to imagine myself flying. I can fly throughout the world. And then one day, sometime in the future, somebody gives you like pilot lessons or something like that, like offer you like a free pilot lesson. And the next thing you know, you're flying, right? And I was like, oh shit, man, maybe I did manifest my reality and just didn't even realize it. Right? Because that's the kind of thing that happens from it. Don't force it. Right? That'll have consequential effects from forcing these things. Wouldn't be higher rent. Single mothers with multiple baby daddies, same thing. You can't help them. Yep. I found throughout life the biggest obstacles in myself and overcame self-doubt. That's really probably it. Understanding, like, I think probably having stuff like self-doubt and then overcoming that, or even things like so low self-esteem or lack of confidence or any of that stuff, if you can recognize it, find what it is, and then be able to overcome those things, you'll find that it's like, actually, some of the things that you thought were a burden on your life were actually more of a blessing, but you weren't willing to let it go. You put the meaning that this is something wrong with me or whatever, but when really it might have been something that was probably fairly attractive about you, but you didn't think it that way. And because you didn't feel it that way, other people didn't feel it that way about it either. But if you had felt it that way, then other people would have felt it that way. Very much like lighting everybody up at bingo, right? And make everybody feel the same way. Because you were getting a reflection exactly of what it is that you are feeling. Like, if you feel the lack of confidence in yourself, then other people will certainly feel it as well. And it's funny because, like, I proved it to myself. Like, when I went down to Houston to go speak at the Rebel Capitalist, I mean, here I'm going to go down and speak with some pretty high level economists, right? And I'm going to be on stage with these people, and I'm going to be speaking to an audience of people who, like, paid a lot of money to see, to come in and see this, like, event. And I got to get up on stage, and I've never done this before. I've never spoken in front of 800 people before. You know how nervous I was to go up there and do that? I mean, All Nighter was there. In fact, All Nighter kind of made it harder on me by getting Robert Kiyosaki to cuss and get all excited before I went on stage. It was very nerve-wracking for me. Thank you very much, All Nighter, for doing that. But still, it was a matter of getting up there on stage, and it was just like, okay, man, just do it, right? Just get up there and make it happen. You're nervous, and just own it. Just go up there and know that you're nervous, and just do it, man. Just go and make this happen. And so I did. Like, I was up there just nervous as hell. And when I got done with the whole, speech and everything else and answered the questions, people were like, dude, great job, man, whatever. And I was like, yeah, I was nervous. Couldn't tell, right? Nobody knew. The only reason why anybody knew I was even nervous is up there is because I just admitted it, right? But that's the point of it all. It was just like, doing things that are out of your comfort zone is the change that is going to make the difference in your life. If you are doing things that are comfortable, then it's not going to change. Your life is not going to change at all. It's going to be the exact same as what it was. That's probably one of the reasons why I like doing live streams as much as I do now, as opposed to doing regular videos, because doing regular videos got very comfortable for me. I could just, I didn't feel like it being challenging or anything like that. But doing live streams is very challenging, trying to keep things going and keep keep it entertaining is like, it's a lot of fun, and it's like, it feels challenging, and, answering these questions off of, shoot from the hip style is just like, I mean, I love it. It's just like, it's a lot of fun, and I'm enjoying that. You can't help someone who doesn't want to help themselves. That's right. I just figure rents will only go as high as people will pay. Yeah. Why does the Fed fund rate matter currently with zero reserve requirement and master accounts having abundant reserves held at the Fed? Well, the Fed funds rate is still, it's just a target rate. The target rate of the Fed, like, the Fed, like when the Fed says, "Hey, we got the target," the Fed funds rate target at 5.5% or 5.25%, whatever it is they're going to have it at. When they say that, it's just a target rate on the wall. It's as if they had wrote it up there. It's like, "Here, we're going to write this number right here. Where this is what we're shooting for." Originally, when the Federal Reserve would try to establish the effective fund rate, which is the actual interest rate that the big banks lend to each other on an overnight basis, they would adjust that effective fund rate by buying and selling reserves off of the big banks, right? So this was the limited reserve system that they were working with. Well, they've moved that into what they now refer to as an abundant reserve system. So they've lowered the reserve requirement of these banks, and they filled them up with an abundant reserve, like you're saying, right? But now the effective fund rate is no longer established on that overnight lending rate. It has moved over to the Federal Reserve's repo facility and the overnight lending, or the interest on excess reserves. And so now they have created a channel in which that they can target that Fed funds rate with, right, by adjusting the interest rates that those two accounts pay. I don't know, does that help? Why does the Fed fund rate matter? That's why. Because it's a target rate, and that's how they adjust, what they're going to set those interest rate policy at. All right, government representatives thrive on uninformed consent. Absolutely, they do. Hey, Tiki Creep, thank you so much. Give him a like. Yes, please do. All right. We got 72 likes going. I see we got a super chat. Let's go down and find that here real quick. Wow, look at all these comments. Oh my gosh, guys, I didn't realize how far behind on comments I was. Okay. Not your problem. Thank you so much for the $4.99. Thank you. I agree with you. I just go with the flow. I just feel where the wind is blowing. I just adjust my sails. My career has been advancing because of that. Yeah, and it's amazing what happens when you let go. Like letting go of outcomes has probably been one of the hardest things for me to do because I had such a big ego. Like, and a lot of people think of like big ego as like somebody walking around cocky or something like that. That's not, I mean, that's not what I think of about a big ego. Big ego to me means that the world has to be done in this fashion. It has to look just like this. If it doesn't look like this, then my entire world is going to come apart. That to me is a big ego, right? It doesn't mean anything about like being cocky or better or anything else than anyone else. It's just, to me, it's a matter of like how you perceive the world to be, and the harder you think that world should be and set in a particular way, that's your ego. That's the big ego that's like, taking over and not allowing other things into your life. Because when you build up these, like, it's like building up this channel of walls. Like it has to come to here and here. And if it doesn't land in there, it's like I got to exclude it. It can't be part of my life because this is the channel that leads me to where it is that I see I'm going. And if you do that, then you have all these other opportunities that are saying, "Hey, dude, look here, man, I can take you there." But you're blocking it out because you have this damn ego that is channeling you down this particular direction and blocking off all these other opportunities from it. The moment that you break all that away and you say, "Okay, I don't care where I go. I don't care where I end up. I'm enjoying this path than this one that I'm taking right now." Right? I'm enjoying doing the live streams and talking, and then whatever it carries me, it carries me. And then next thing you know, opportunities will start to come in, much like the speaking engagement down at the Silver Symposium and all this other stuff. Now, I could say, "Oh man, I can't make it down to Vegas or whatever," and think, "Man, that's kind of a difficult trip. I gotta, find, people to take care of the birds or whatever." I mean, I got like, these other things. Or I could be like, "Man, my opportunity there, what? Finally, I got my speaking engagement opportunity I've been looking for," right? And so those are, that's the way you end up looking at stuff, I guess. Uh, it's the way I mean, it's the way I'm trying to find this, at least that's the way I'm trying to find living my life to be the easiest, right? Is to just let things naturally occur. What are your thoughts on Robert Kennedy Jr. idea of reducing spending considerably on the United States industrial war complex and investing money into manufacturing? I don't know. That sounds like a political motivation. I think without a heavy military army, it's going to be very difficult to protect the shipping channels and therefore keep the dollar dominance, in as far as the world plays. So I think as far as the world currency goes, being the world reserve currency, I think it's almost like automatic that you have to have a heavy military to come to go with it. So I don't know. Maybe somebody else has a better idea than that, but that seems to be the case right now. So I don't know. In theory, I think it sounds good. Investing into manufacturing productivity really only works when the currency is asset based. Under current monetary system, manufacturing will not lead to anything, according to Harvard economy economist, I guess. Yeah, and I kind of agree with that too. Like, I mean, it does temporarily, manufacturing does temporarily work for a while. Like, you can see the examples of that in China, where their standard of living has increased over the last 20 years as their manufacturing base has grown. But once it reaches a peak and manufacturing can find a cheaper place to manufacture and distribute from, then you're going to fall into poverty, just like, Cantillon essay would describe as far as the increase and decrease of money goes. So if you are a manufacturing based economy and you can no longer bring in new money because you can't expand your manufacturing anymore, what do? Right? Yeah, there's nothing you can do except for, you know, fight wars or do, some kind of scheme. I don't know what it is that China's going to plan on doing to bring in the new money, but they got to do something. And you know, I'm only guessing that it's probably not going to be pleasant, whatever it is that they're going to do. So in that case, yeah, I believe that, being the world reserve currency gives us the ability that we don't have to manufacture in order to have new money coming in. We have to issue out debt, which is in itself very dangerous and is going to lead to its own catastrophe at some point. But how far out, who knows? All right, hey, another super chat. Joshua Bits, thank you so much for that $5. Very cool of you. What is your prediction for the economy in the next 12 months? I think the economy in the next 12 months is going to be pretty difficult for a lot of people who are very heavily in debt. Liquidity is going to be a major issue coming into the next, 6 months to a year. I still believe that to be the case. I think there is plenty of early warning signs coming out talking about the liquidity crisis, especially like, say, the warning coming out of the Federal Reserve to the banks to make sure that their assets are very close to cash, meaning like if they're not sitting in cash itself, that whatever it is that is not cash is a very close cash equivalent. That leads me to believe that they are concerned about liquidity issues coming into the future. Uh, with that, I would assume that we are going to see a lot of bankruptcies and a lot of failures start to occur. We're going to find a lot of like you know, a- like a lot of the toys, I guess you could say, like you're going to find a lot of that stuff come up for sale, all the way up to like some of the things that are less liquid falling in dramatic price. So, you'll see the ATVs out there on Facebook for far less than what, the original price was. Even if they are hardly used, they're still going to be, dramatically cheaper. You're going to find things like, you know, junk bonds, things that are very difficult to liquidate. You're going to find the price of those things falling very fast and very far, as the people who are looking to get into a cash position in order to cover their own debts that they have are going to find themselves very difficult, position to be in. That's why I'm saying anybody who is heavily indebted is going to have a hard time dealing with that, just because the liquidity isn't going to be out there. Like, it's easy to go out there and pay your debts if you can have access to money, right? If you're doing a lot of jobs or whatever, you can bring in all this money, it's easy to pay your debts. But the moment that you can't get a job in, it's like they're out there, but there's not a lot of them, and it's hard to get this money to flow through the system. Then you're going to find the people who are most heavily indebted are going to suffer the most, right? And they start to go bankrupt. the exact opposite happens, when liquidity is flowing in there, because the people who take out the debt, they're the ones who have first access to money. And so they're spending it on, if they can spend it on business and grow business with it, then they can do well. But if they expand their business with debt to the point that they can no longer make those payments, then they end up going into bankruptcy. And I've experienced that with 2 different lumber yards who had expanded operations during good times only to fail during bad times. All right. So that's kind of what I see in the next 12 months. It's one of the reasons why I've been, fairly, it's weird being a strong dollar theorist and a gold bug at the same time, right? A lot of people say that you can't do that. There's no way, right? But that's really what I am. I mean, I believe in, the ownership of precious metals for an insurance policy. And I believe that the dollar is going to be buying more than anybody could ever possibly imagine coming into the future. You think about it, the Federal Reserve is in one of the very rare times that they are actually pulling money out of the system. I mean, and they're pulling a significant amount of it out. So if this trend continues, it is going to tighten up and people are going to feel the pain from that. 142 people. That is awesome. Hey, hit that like button until we get up to 100 likes. Uh, bro, is anyone guess I got stung, bought and sold a bit? Oh, you guys are talking. Okay, France has rent control. Your thoughts on rent control in the U.S.? I think it's a bad idea. All right. I think that if you control the rent, saying, hey, you can't charge any more than this, then why is it that I would be, as an investor, going into trying creating more or more properties to rent out if I'm limited on how much I can make? I think it's a terrible idea. Right. I think it's, I mean, I understand from the renter's point of view that it's a great thing. It was just like, if I have this money, I can spend more into the economy and all that other stuff. Yeah, that's great. But from an investment point of view, as how do you create more property? Like, how do you incentivize property builders to create rental properties if they're limited on how much they can make from it? So you get one of 2 choices that come from that. You get nothing, right, because they won't do it, or you get shitty apartments, right? Just so that they can at least make some profit off of the rent that comes from it, because since it's controlled and limited. You see how, I mean, to me, that doesn't work. If you had an overabundance of properties, then sure, go ahead and put rent control, but then it wouldn't matter, So, all right. Hey, I got another super chat. Let's go check that out. Abo. Thank you very much for the 5. Feels like the decision makers are plundering this money system, then a new one will be forced on us globally. Anything else makes no sense to me at the moment. I think there is a new monetary system coming, but I don't think it's going to be much different from the monetary system that is already currently existing. The only difference that I think is going to happen is that they're going to force us out of paper currency and into central bank digital currencies or a stable coin type of currency, and remove the paper completely out of the system. And the point of that would be the eventual move into negative interest rates. That's kind of like my idea of what is coming. I mean, as far as the currency goes, but the setup of to me, there would be no other real reason to set up another currency, except if you take on the control thought. Like they want to control our movements, control, tax trace, do all that other stuff. Then in that sense, then I guess a digital component would be required. But really, other than that, I don't see why a digital component would be needed unless you are going to take interest rates into negative territory. And then at that point, it would definitely be needed. So to me, that's more of what they're gearing up for. They know that they're going to have to break the lower bound, right? And that credible threats isn't going to work anymore, right? Because we're all not understanding credible threats. We all understand forward guidance, signaling, jawboning, whatever they want to call it. We're all going to eventually figure it all out and say that, they're just basically, talking out their ass, and we're going to know better, right? And so they're going to have to take interest rates into negative territory, and they can't do that with cash in the system. So, because the moment they take your bank account into negative, you just pull all the cash out. Dollar's life cycle is coming to an end. How is this? How is this not clear? Come on, Gyrate. Simon never claimed to know. This is all just economic speculation as to the future. Oh, what did Gyrate say? Where's that at? Gyrate. Oh, Gyrate. Okay. I forgot who Gyrate was. He's our troll. You can go ahead and chat with him. I'm not reading his comment. All right. All right. Okay, the mark of the beast is one world currency, except the global part. Housing development will go forward in those markets where overseas investors are buying luxury apartments and leave them empty. So what should we be doing with actual cash? Buy gold? No, I would be holding on to cash right now. I mean, I would be holding on to cash or something that is fairly close to cash, like maybe the short-term treasuries or something like that. Um, and only because I believe during this short-term liquidity crisis that we would be facing, if it actually turns into a crisis or just a major issue, I think there's going to be buying opportunities at that time, and then you would want to get out of cash. You would want to get into those investments. I don't I mean, gold, I think, is an excellent position to be in for insurance policy purposes, like for insurance, like not for making money. Like, I've never done well trying to play the game of buying silver so I can make money off of it. In fact, I'm pretty sure that I'm under what I have purchased. The value of my silver is under what I purchased it for. But I really don't know what I've purchased all of it for because I've done so many purchases over the years. I just dollar cost average and whatever it happens to be because it isn't important like what it's worth. To me, it's important of how much I have. And that again is like the insurance policy looking at it. If you want to try and make money off of the move in silver, like if you think that silver is really going to go up in value, I think it's probably a better play to get into the miners. They're probably going to have a much more dramatic move than the actual metal itself. But being in the miners is risky. Being in metal itself is not. There's no risk. Like in my opinion, there's no risk at all being in the precious metal itself. All right. What will happen to gold and silver in the short term and long term? Yeah. I don't know. Like, again, like I think, my thoughts on silver and gold are not one of how it is that I can make money off of it. And I think that's what a lot of people end up looking at. They look at crisis scenario and they think, man, I can make a lot of money off of this crisis if I invest in gold and silver or something like that. Um, I mean, they probably could, in a lot of ways, but I don't know. To me, that's like I don't try to be a wishful thinker of bad times in order to benefit from it. Like that's like kind of counterintuitive. Um, I would much rather be in a position to deal with a crisis situation and hope that one doesn't show up, right? And that's kind of like owning firearms, same thing. It was just like, why do you own firearms? Hopefully I don't need them, right? Because if you never need them in life, that would be perfect, right? Except for, if you want them for hunting purposes, then you kind of need them. But as far as defense purposes, the fact that you have it and don't need it is perfect. You know? All right. No, it's happiness everywhere. Just look at the failed UBI attempt in Nigeria. Or remember you were told not to pay cash during the virus. I heard people didn't use cash or take cash or whatever. I did. I worked retail the entire time and I never denied anybody's cash. Take advantage of the high interest rates. That's what I'm doing. Yep. When stated, it seems like an oxymoron, but what you believe often becomes your reality. Perspective and fear drives you into certain paths subconsciously. Absolutely, it does. I mean, that is the very real thing. The whole thoughts, like your thoughts and actions, will manifest your reality. Like it will just it's weird to think, but like the little subtle actions and behaviors that you do every single day is really why it is that you are in the position that you are in right now, right? And it's kind of funny because somebody told me this was like, man, you got a really cool life. You got like a fun job that you seem to like. You do this YouTube thing. You get to travel here on to do this, travel down to Vegas. That's a really cool thing. And I'm thinking, yeah, it is pretty cool. That's a pretty cool thing to have in my life. It's not something that I had ever, anticipated being able to have in my life. So having that is really cool. And I think about like what it was that got me here. And it was just like, yeah, it was a lot of little things. It was, it was starting the channel. It was believing that I could do the channel. It was like not really caring how successful the channel was going to be, but just kind of putting forth the effort, and all these little tiny things that I was doing has eventually got me to where I am today. And I'm not trying to brag about that. Whoever thought I was trying to brag, I'm just trying to explain that's how it went down, right? And people ask me all the time. It was just like, man, what do I invest in? And I'm like, invest in your thoughts, right? Invest in better thoughts, because like the world will be there for you. This world is full of abundance of stuff. It's all out there. Anything you could ever possibly wanted. Like my buddy Ryan showed me that a long time ago, sitting at his, kitchen island table with a cell phone, gathering all kinds of stuff out of the world with the cell. He'd just make offers on ridiculously low offers on 100 different items, out there. And he said somebody will bite, and he would come across some of the most amazing things. Right? He got into horses. Like his daughter wanted to ride horses for the summer. She was like, she rode a horse over at a friend's house or something. Next thing you know, I mean, he's got 3 horses down there, and kids are all riding them and really enjoying it. And he's learning all about horses, and they're, the kids are, learning the whole, how to care for horses and everything. And then, as time went on, he realized, it was just like these things are a lot of maintenance and care, and it takes a lot. So he found a good home for him, and, moved him on to some other owners. But, the fact that he just like, here, I want some horses, here, horses, and I'm like, whoa, yeah, whoa, weird. Yeah, right? Funny little joke in there. Uh, do you see high prices in gas like $10 to $15 a gallon soon? No, I don't. Um, and I don't see it going that high, and just simply because I think once it gets that high, not a whole lot of people will be driving, and so if there's not a lot of people driving, then you're gonna have oil prices crash, and then you'll find, prices of gas coming down again. Um, I mean, I guess it would be the reasoning that the gallon has gone to $10 to $15 a gallon. That would be probably more of a, but I don't see it going there. Not now, not yet. There's a YouTuber, Donut, who talks about astronomy being symbiotic with the markets. Yeah, I mean, again, it's, you can tell that story, like, and if that's the story you tell yourself and you figured it out and you have all the evidence that shows you how this works, then I mean that's your reality, right? I mean, I mean, I don't understand astronomy to that kind of level, so I couldn't like vouch for that. But I mean, if somebody else has figured that out, then yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to knock that. Um, okay, if anything, negative interest rates would boost BTC price and gold would shoot up as well. Yeah, I mean, I believe that would probably, negative interest rates would definitely be a benefit for gold and Bitcoin and stuff. Because anything that has a negative, like if you have a currency that has a negative interest rate attached to it of some sort, then anything out there would be a better item to have, because at least it doesn't have a negative rate attached to it, right? It would be just a zero rate. And a zero is better than negative, right? We're still at 90 likes, guys. 10 more likes away from that 100. Uh, no one knows who is not part of the decision makers. So yeah, predictions with the help of astrology may help. Yeah, that's an interesting thought. Be your own bank though. Self-storage. Don't leave it in an exchange. Man, yes, sir. I currently do that. Cheers. Gold and silver is to preserve one's wealth. Use stochastic or keeping at least some money in the bank valid. I cold storage my keys too. Buy some e-bikes. This way, if gas gets too high and people are stranded, you could already have a supply before it goes up. See, I'm not worried about it because see, most people drive nice cars and newer cars don't seem to really get good gas mileage. I drive a 99 Toyota Corolla around if I wanted to, and it gets like, I don't know. I don't even know. It's like it gets great gas mileage. I just put gas in it every once in a while. I drive all over the county. So I'm not worried about gas prices. Like, even if it was to go up extremely high, I don't drive vehicles that I'm terribly concerned about, right? Even if it was like 10 or $15 a gallon, considering like I know some people who drive vehicles around that get like 10 miles to the gallon, like it's almost the equivalent of what I'm driving my Toyota around for. So I commute, right? I'm being able to transport myself. Other people have to pay out the nose to drive themselves around. I'm not I'm not paying, right? I mean, I pay very, very little to be able to travel. Right on, we hit that 100 mark. Thank you so much for hitting the like button, guys. All right. I keep my gold in the fridge too. I don't keep my gold anywhere where people can find it, especially in the fridge. All right. Unless you're talking like, I guess I know what you're talking about now. Never mind. All right. It's disgusting. Let's see here. So, what will you do with the greenbacks as central bank digital currencies come, or even worse, even more inflation? All right. I think you were talking to Urban X there on that. I had to jump ship. Let's see here, you guys. Okay. Yeah, I have no confidence in hold cash any longer than a month or two. Anything else becomes BTC. How much will they pay you to attend and speak at the financial education convention? Oh, I'm not getting paid to do this. This is just, getting down there and being able to speak, getting the exposure from it, getting the experience. That's really what this is all about. I mean, I would imagine that if I was like of the level of, say, Geo or Griffin, then that would might be, getting some kind of pay for doing something like that. And I can imagine that there would probably be other events in which that maybe some pay would be involved. But no, I was invited to come down and hang out and just, pretty much get the exposure from being down there and the experience of being on stage. And that's really all I could ask for. I'm not really asking for anything else. Monetary, like, I don't, I don't, the moment that I try to seek out money, it runs. It runs so far from me. Like, I don't try to pursue money like I used to. I try to do things that are going to be beneficial for the ability for money to be attracted to me, like to be able to acquire money. But like the moment that I try to like force it into my life, like sponsorships, for example, I find that it starts to damage me in other ways. And part of that ends up causing the money to actually, find distance from me. Um, and what I mean by that is like, even though I might do a sponsorship or something, some other kind of like bill that I wasn't expecting, medical or something like that will come up and then take it, right? So it was just like, what was the point of trying to do that? Like, not only did it not feel good to do that, but then as soon as I acquired the money, it just immediately was taken. So it was just like, okay, don't pursue that anymore. just pursue your life and do the fun things and enjoy the journey, and then all the other stuff will just start falling into place. And it seems to, right? It's hard to trust it. It really is, because like, I'm thinking, oh, I got bills, I got, this, I got, stuff coming up or whatever. But, knowing that I'm following my passion, that I'm doing things that I feel is helping the people that are watching, like whether it's just entertainment or if you're actually getting some information out of it, whatever it is, I feel like I am doing something for the audience, and therefore like everything else as far as the universe goes, or God, or whatever you want to say, it'll start falling into place. And so I just trust it like that. So I never really thought about like whether or not I was going to get paid to do that ever. I don't think about whether I'm not going to get paid to do anything. I just try to do it for the best that I can, and then hope that everything works out for the best. Buy guns with cash. I used to buy guns with cash, but then they made that illegal to do here in Oregon. So guns are good assets to buy. Bury them in a bag of motor oil to preserve them. All right. Let's see if expirations, monetary or non-monetary, will be done. Laws in Europe, especially Germany, were changed in the last few years. Just saying there is a probability. Can you give more information about the Las Vegas convention? Never been to any invite like that. It might be awkward guy standing around. Well, I tell you, I haven't been to the Silver Symposium before, but I've been to a couple of the Rebel Capitalists. I've been to three different Rebel Capitalist events, and they are fun. They are so much fun. They are very high, good energy people who are sharing ideas. They're networking. They are, it's like, I don't know how to quite describe it, but it's very much like being, say, maybe in this chat right here with the comment section, only in a group of 800 people, right? And you will find all kinds of walks of life in there. You'll find people who are just regular old working class people who just really want to learn about what's going on in the economy and see the speakers, live and meet them and ask them questions, to, some of the most outstanding millionaires that you see out there. Um, I've met so many people. Like I have met so many people now that you wouldn't. It's hard to even believe. Like all these people that I just always considered like my heroes as far as economics go, and then next thing you know, I got them like in my cell phone list. It's just like, man, I can actually send these people messages. And talk to them and ask them questions, and you know, I don't bother them because they got real lives. They don't want to mess around. But I have that now, and again, it's just like it's amazing, and you can get those same contacts. You can do that when you go to these events. I mean, you can literally walk right up and you know meet Robert Kiyosaki or Jason Hartman or Peter Schiff. He was a little harder to kind of go up and talk to because he was such surrounded by a bunch of people. But it's fun. It's a great time. Jeremy R, thank you very much for the 4.99. I'd doing CDs and government bond fund, G fund with my cash. Yeah, that's probably like, again, that's getting really close to cash, and being very, very close to cash like that is really how you should probably position yourself, considering that's what the Federal Reserve was asking these big banks if they were doing, if they were sitting in a position that's very close to cash in order to deal with the liquidity issue coming into the future. So I think that's like, if you are not going to be in the cash, you should be fairly close to it, like you are there. It seems as most folks in here don't hold actual cash. Cash in the bank isn't cash. Everyone, so in the systems, we are doomed. Well, this system is doomed anyway. There's a mystery like number. Whoever hits the like on that mystery number gets a prize. Man, I just saw the dice calling 7 on it. Yeah, you see it over my shoulder there. Uh, well, the green. I'm guessing, will the green deal make silver go up? I mean, I would imagine that the demand for silver is only going to increase, but considering the manipulation tactics that go into the creation of paper silver that represents physical silver, so there's 100 pieces of paper out there, even more, probably 150 pieces of paper out there for every ounce of silver that's being sold. So the market itself, the investment community, is heavily invested into silver, but as far as the availability of physical, it doesn't even come close to what the investment is doing, right? So if all the investment demand that was in paper silver actually went into the physical silver and possession of physical silver, then that would be like a very traumatic event for most industries out there, as they would not be able to acquire the silver they need to make their products, and the price of silver would just skyrocket, right? So most people I know aren't really into silver, right? And not in at least not in an active position of buying silver. The people on this community here, like on the YouTube community, they're probably heavily active in buying silver. But the people I know personally, very few people I know actually go out and physically buy silver. But yeah, the Green Deal would create a demand for that, right? If you had a lot of electric vehicles and industry like that, then yeah, that's going to put a huge demand on silver. But really, I think it's the paper manipulation that should be really looked at as far as what's going to cause the prices to go up. If that ended, then we would see some serious position in silver go like high positions. I got Denim Cash Urban not in the system. Should we short? Okay, what will happen to airlines with gas prices going up? Should we short them? I don't know. No need to invest in airlines at the moment. Decision makers already told us that flying is bad. Well, I didn't put that into my belief, so I didn't hear about how flying is bad. I'm flying. I'm gonna fly. Actual cash is backed by the same promise. If the system fails, it's worth nothing. Nothing can save the system, God help us. Cash is more denim than actual paper. Oh, right. Simon God. You mean Morgan Freeman? I hear the voice when I'm sleeping. Either is God or Morgan Freeman. Alright. I still don't know. I think the West will come back just like they did before USD and every other country backed by USD will reestablish. Hope so. Changing from gold to petrodollars. Okay. If I had listened to Robert Kiyosaki and Peter Schiff for the last 10 years, I would not bought and paid off my house 5 times my 401k. Gold is in the same as 10 years ago. Well, to be honest, I listened to a lot of Peter Schiff. Peter Schiff was probably the number one most influential economist that I had listened to in the early days of even studying the economy. I owe a lot of, credit and gratitude to Peter Schiff for putting out as much content and information as he had done. He made me very aware of government actions and Federal Reserve actions and stuff like that. But I agree, I don't think the information that I had gotten from Peter Schiff had benefited me outside of possibly having that insurance policy of the silver position. But I was under the impression that, silver and gold was going to make me fabulously rich after listening to a lot of the stuff that he was talking about. And now I look at it in a much different way. Knowing that Peter Schiff is a salesman, he's a gold salesman, which most economists out there are, when they're, almost everybody on the internet is trying to sell something, whether it's their program, their, you know, follow me and learn how to stock trade or, whatever it is, everybody has something that they're trying to sell. So, I mean, I'm not trying to knock anybody, especially Peter Schiff, because like I said, he's one of my heroes out there, especially when it came to, becoming, to the, getting the understanding to the level that I have in order to do some of the things that I've done. I have to, really give him a lot of credit for that. But yeah, I don't, I don't know if anybody really has followed Peter Schiff 100% and said, "Man, I am so glad I did because I made all this money off of the understandings of following just nothing but his philosophies 100%." Because I don't see where gold has been in a position in which that people have really had that opportunity to do that. There is, over time, there is some decent positionings that you could have taken in order to really acquire some decent wealth in gold, but really you'd have to be much more aware of the market conditions at the time in order to have taken advantage of that and not just blindly buying gold and silver throughout the years. But again, like blindly buying gold and silver throughout the years has been what I have done for the insurance policy that I've gotten from it. So I really thank Peter Schiff for that as well, right? So, I mean, I'm just being 100% honest with that, All right, gotta run. Much love, everyone. So long for now, Simon. Well, thank you so much, Teacup Pug, for being here. All right. The next incarnation of the dollar will be CBDC, and I expect it to decline from there. Yeah. I don't know. I'm still thinking that stable coins are going to have some kind of gameplay in there, and then from stable coins, central bank digital currencies will come in. But I think people like the only reason why I say that too is because the Federal Reserve has talked so much about stable coins. Like it has been stated so many times in their speeches and in their words that I have a hard time believing that it's not going to come in the future, these stable coins, or at least come into, because they're already here. I mean, come into more of a regulated aspect of the banking system. And then once you have stable coins in, and everybody's using stable coins in relation to the cash that's in the system, because this is what they're going to think, then you remove the cash out of the system, replacing it with central bank digital currencies. Now stable coins are backed by central bank digital currencies. You see kind of like how they did the shift with it. It's because you can't really bring in a new currency. You can't bring in like a new currency. Like it doesn't quite work like that. Somebody had mentioned in the comments saying that this channel should review the history of world reserve currencies, and I thought to myself, well, there is no real history of world reserve currencies outside of the gold and silver and the images that were punched on the coins, right? So Spanish dollars was like ultimately the world reserve currency at one time before like because even like the Americas used it, the Europeans used it. It was all like the Spanish dollar was like it, like it was even here in the United States they were that's what they used, and then it was over time that other images were being printed on these coins, right? But it was still silver and gold that was always the issue, or the backing of the currency. It wasn't a backing, it was the currency. It was just this gold and silver and what image happened to be on it at the time. So it wasn't until like the British pound and some of their efforts as far as like, because they were wow, there's so much to talk about there. I got to get my thoughts together to really explain that better. Because like at one time it was the UK who was like the manufacturer of the world, right? They were punching out all kinds of manufactured products for the rest of the world, and they had their currency out there being used. But it was also backed by, the metal standards. It was the fact that they had pretty much put themselves in a position in which that they could no longer be the world provider of that liquidity, losing out to the manufacturing that was going over to the United States. And I mean, I'm kind of blasting through this history, but that's essentially what ended up happening. And they can no longer be in that position of providing the world with that liquidity. And they just couldn't do it anymore, and they had to sever themselves from the gold standard. So it's very much like what the United States had gone through as well, just putting it in a nutshell. But ultimately, gold and silver has always been the world reserve currency. It wasn't until the United States was deemed like you're the ones who are going to do it. This is the Brentwood system, and now the world reserve currency is going to be this fiat currency, and the world just accepted it. Like it's almost as if they didn't really have any other choice, but they did believe at one time that those dollars would be exchangeable for gold, and they were essentially tricked out of it, right? But it wasn't a trick, it's just the same old game that's being played, just a different way. So, there was no other world reserve currency other than gold and silver, like any kind of, with any kind of like, I don't know how to say it without, without any kind of other paper currency being out there. I mean, there were paper currencies in existence, right? But they were local. They weren't like world reserve currencies, and they weren't being traded for goods and services across oceans and stuff. They were localized, and they, would collapse on their own and stuff like that due to overzealous governments and printing and stuff. I don't know. Did all that make sense? I had to get my thoughts better on that before I should explain that. Right on, Patrick. Hey, thank you so much for the 4.99s. So excited to chat Wednesday. I have many thoughts. I would love to hear your input. Keep it up, bro. Right on. Patrick is the gentleman who's putting on the event. He's the one that I've been communicating with about going down to Vegas to do this. So, man, thank you so much for being here, Patrick. I really enjoy that. Yeah, and we're getting together Wednesday. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. Thank you for the $5, man. Very cool of you. Free recurring money creates laziness. All right, you can drink in Dubai in certain places which have a license. Oh, I didn't know that. My sister just got back from Turkey. Oh wow, what was that like? All right. What about 25% cash, 25% Bitcoin, 25% stocks, and 25% gold and silver? Good idea. I mean, I don't know if I have exactly that percentage, but those are all the things that I get into, right? I mean, really, like, I probably have a bigger position in cryptocurrencies than I do just about anything else. Which is kind of weird to think because I'm not much into really into the cryptocurrencies as far as like being terribly excited about those. But I've been buying them for so long, and they've had such a dramatic move over, over the years that I've had them that they have actually done far better than anything else I've had. So, um, I mean, it's kind of funny to not really trust cryptocurrencies, but yet have done better in that than anything else. So, all right. I concur. Reading Schiff. Yeah. All right, let's go down here. Oh man, you guys are talking. Okay. Let's see here. What are your thoughts on hoflation? Oh man, you talking about? I mean, is this the idea behind all these women who like make all this money off of like OnlyFans or something like that? Is that, and then like now they have all this money and they don't need no man in their life? Is that kind of like that thing? Yeah. Get a coffee, bro. Gotta stay awake. Correct on drinking in Dubai. Really, Patrick, I appreciate the compared admission tickets. Oh, the comped admission tickets. Hey, right on. Oh shit, UE got paid for the Vegas gig? No, I mean, I don't think. I mean, maybe I don't know. I didn't ask Patrick about that part. I don't think this is part is getting paid, but I'm gonna go down there and I'm going to enjoy it, and I don't want to talk too much about like that part of it because anyway, you guys are such an amazing addition to the show. Can't wait to see you meet G. Edward Griffin. Yeah, that's going to be an amazing part of it. Like because he's like one of the last people. I've said this. I can't really think of anybody else on my list of people. I mean, I'm sure there is if I really think about it, but. As far as people who have been like on my list of individuals I've wanted to meet, G. Edward Griffin has been one of them that would top the list. Like that would it. Like I could finally cross the list off, and I've pretty much met everybody I've ever really wanted to, and that's pretty incredible to think of in itself. Call in to chat Bitcoin and sovereignty. Very cool. Absolutely. Cheers, you eat. If the dollar is not for the future, then why are 99% of stable coins pegged to USD? Not gonna lie, I was nervous in Dubai. I never got over to Asia. Philippines, I heard is pretty nice. Sister had a great time. I'm just manifesting my Vegas destiny. Lots of laughs, right, Patrick? So I guess I take it you going to Vegas. Am I going to see you there all nighter? That's awesome. When do you think we will be able to use our cash? Well, you can use cash now. Dubai is just like the West, too expensive. Worked from there remote for some months. Just discovered Bangkok and Thailand. What an amazing place. 2 to 3 times cheaper than Dubai. Do you think stagflation will last decades? No, I don't think stagflation will last decades. I think stagflation is short lived. It will be short, like, I mean, I guess it depends on, like, how it is that you feel the stagflation is going to be affecting. Like some people just, they feel like inflation is never going to end, and just believe that hyperinflation is going to be something that's inevitable at this point. So I mean, I guess it's all about the meaning that you give it and what it is that you're looking for, as far as to expect from the economy. But do I expect stagflation last year, decades? No. Um, I can imagine stagflation like lasting in the real estate market for some time, where you don't see it go up or down for a while. But I think that as far as like stagflation lasting throughout the entire economy for years, I don't see that. Apparently, New York's sense of humor don't translate to Gooниeville. Guess not. All right, I want to meet Griffin too. Damn right we do. I mean, who wouldn't, right? You expect me to charge my bro for tickets and come add value? No chance. I hope we will find ways to win together. Absolutely, man. He's my personal guest. Well, thank you so much, Patrick, and All Nighter, for everybody being there, man. This is like so awesome. Don't feed the bears. How do you think a decreasing population will influence the world economically within the next century? Um, yeah, it's kind of weird. I think population. I don't think it's. I think the economy dictates more about what the population is going to do than the population dictates what the economy is going to do. I think, a lot of people look at the population and think, what is the economy going to react from this? But I think it's the population is reacting to the economy. And when we think about how it is that more poverty stricken nations have bigger populations than civilized advanced economies do, right? And it really has to do with the standard of living and how it is that most people don't want to bring offspring or children or generations into existence that don't have a better life than they have. Like if you are concerned about having children and that you would not be able to provide them with a life that is good as the one you have now, then most likely you're going to postpone having children. Okay? But if you are living a life that is, man, it can't get any worse from here, and the only chance of having a lesser quality of life than what I am living right now is death, then you can have all the children you want, because really there is no, it doesn't get any worse for you, right? But if you have children, if you have a lot of money and you have a high cost of living, a high standard of living, and all that going on with it, and you have children, well, then that deteriorates your life, right? It takes away from your abilities. It makes it more difficult for you. So generally, when you have advanced economies, higher standard of living, more luxuries, more income, then you have less children, and that's really odd to think, because you think with more money you would have more capabilities and therefore you would have more children, but that's not what happens. It's quite the opposite. And so really I think it's the economy that dictates the population, not necessarily the population that is going to dictate the economy. And we can kind of see that in areas like that increase in their standard of livings. Like, China had laws and rules, but still, even if you took in the idea that they raised their standard of living over the last 20 years, um, over the last 20 years, they've had a dramatic drop in population. Again, that was their own doing, like their own laws and, stuff like that. But still, it doesn't, negate the fact that it still happened, right? Their standard of living had increased and their population decreased. Like sometimes I wonder if you can force certain things into the economy. Like if you if you know that having a higher standard of living will most likely mean that you will have less children, by forcing people to have less children, does that automatically raise their standard of living? You see what I'm just kind of getting at? Like, you know, like create the situation in which that would exist, and then it happens. All right. How long? We've been out here for almost 2 hours, right? On. All right. How do you think decrease? Oh, we already read that. Okay. Most likely I'll be going, just waiting on confirmation. Thanks for entertaining my humor, Patrick. Really appreciate you. Right on, man. Oh, you guys are so awesome. Okay. Well, the farmers of men are, if an insanely small number of folks, they seem to have trouble influencing us. Hmm. Let's see. Do you think we'll have stagflation like Japan 1 decade at least? Um, no, I don't. I don't see it happening like that. I mean, Japan's a little different because they don't hold the world reserve currency, right? So in order for like a stagflation or something like that, it would have to mean that like the United States is not going to be doing some of the things that they would typically do in order to keep the demand for liquidity going. Mainly going deep into debt and doing a lot of trade deficit spendings and stuff like that. Um, I don't know. I guess I would have to think about that and really kind of like, give us into consideration on what a stagflation in the United States would be like and how that would occur. So I'm going to have to give it a little bit more thought, and I'll try and, come up with something that's going to, sound reasonable instead of me just kind of talking on my ass instead of just, but I'll give it some thought and I'll see if I can't come up with, something that's a little bit better. Uh, get a Swiss ball to stretch with. 7 years and my kiddos will be of age. Hopefully, my actions of the past and present near future allow for me to explore some more of this world. Hell yeah, man. That's the thought right there. Do you think the auto workers union is going to strike? It's hard to say. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you see some strikes going on, but I don't know. Like, the whole my dad was really big into unions, and he really, like, he almost wouldn't take a job unless it had a union that he could be part of and stuff like that. Um, but as far as like whether or not they're going to strike, I would assume that if they don't get the way that they want, then the union will call for it or whatever. But I don't know if, like, personally, I haven't studied into any of it or know any of the aspects of it to say whether or not they're going to strike. But I always thought, like, the whole union thing, like, I can understand how a lot of it is really beneficial. Um, I remember a friend of mine had God, how do I say this without like letting out too much? Because I don't want to get in, I don't want to make anybody mad, but he had worked for a particular organization. Here, I'll put it like this: he worked for a particular organization in which that he had a job there that didn't pay very much, and because they had this standard of living pay increase to that they got every year, there was nothing he could do to increase his pay, right? And they just kept saying, well, it's the union, it's the union, it's the union rules, it's the union, whatever. So he got himself in the position to be on the board, right, of the union, right? The whole, whatever board of, decision making that they did. And soon as he got on the board and was a member of it, he tried to disband the union, right? Tried to get it to dissolve, and basically found himself in like a pretty, you know, a pretty bad position as far as nobody was really approving of what he was thinking, and he found himself like pretty much outcasted from the entire thing. So I find that to be kind of like an interesting story for his part, that he was like basically limited in his pay because what they said was the union's rules or whatever. So he joined the union onto the board and tried to have it disbanded so he could get a pay raise, and they ended up firing him. Like, not, I don't know if they necessarily fired him, but he didn't work there too much longer after that. I wish I had better. I wish he was here to tell that story. He would tell it so much better. All right. Question: do you ever prospect beach gold? I hear it's plentiful near Astoria. Yes, I have, actually. Um, the black sands, there's black sand deposits. There's better ones across the river over in Washington. In fact, I think they give you permits to do it over there. Um, on the Oregon side, it's difficult because the sands shift a lot. So the black sand deposits that show up are, they'll be there for a while and then they shift and they move on to other places. But there's a lot of like thick black sand deposits, magnite and whatever else is in those things. And there's little tiny pieces of gold inside of it, little tiny flakes. And I mean, it is tiny, tiny. In fact, hold on one second. All right, so thanks for hanging out. All right, so this is the little bit of gold. I got this old like perfume bottle that I keep it in. But anyway, this is some of the black sand gold that I got off of the beach here. And so anyway, I don't know if you can see it down in there. You go. Can you see it there? Anyway, it's tiny, 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 tiny flakes, right? And it is very difficult to get that stuff out of the black sand because the flakes are so small and the black sand is so heavy that it really is very difficult to try and separate the gold away from the black sand. Now, there is some sluicing methods, and there's some things that you can do to try and get a lot of the black sand out because it's magnetic. You can use a magnet to try and like pick up a lot of that black sand. The only problem with doing that is that the flakes are so small that they accumulate with the black sand, and you can literally like pick up the flakes of gold with the black sand as you're using the magnet. So that again, it makes it very difficult to try and just get those little blacks or little pieces of flakes out of the sand. But I found like there's some devices like the Blue Bowl concentrator that helps. You can pull a lot of the black sand out of it, leaving a lot of the flakes on the bottom. Using that. But really, what I have done is, sluicing can help. There's some sluicing methods that'll get a lot of the flakes out. But I found literally throwing a pinch of black sand into the pan and searching for the little flakes and pulling them out one at a time with a little eyedropper. And you're never gonna make it rich doing it that way. That's for sure. But it is a fun little hobby for pulling gold out of the beach sand. And over the years, I've collected quite a bit of it. Pretty cool, huh? Right. Anyway, yep, fun hobby. Uh, I don't understand why most to all of the food companies making new lows with other people can't eat. Of the food companies making new lows with other people can't eat. It's because of the bullwhip effect. That's the other thing. Like, you can pretty much, if you read news articles on the economy and you think about whether or not the topic that they are discussing has something to do with Cantillon effect, the Gresham's law, Thier's law, Triffin's dilemma, or the bullwhip effect. I mean, if you study those four economic theories or processes, like the bullwhip effect, you can find that really they answer a lot of the economic questions that are out there that people are discussing but don't realize that these laws are in place, or these particular theories are happening. Um, so like when it comes to the food supply in the food industry, you got to think like there was a time, during the pandemic that there was a huge demand for food, right? Everybody was just like saying, "Oh shit, man, I'm going out there and buying as much as I can and getting ready for, end times." And there was this huge demand for food. Well, when the shelves got cleared out and the prices went up, the investment going into food production really shot up. And this is the bullwhip effect really taking place. As this investment going into the production of food ramped up, a lot of production of food started to take place. Well, then we find this oversupply of production is coming onto the market, and you end up with, like, my dad buying, three packages of chicken. I bought 3 for 1 packages of chicken, right? Because of this overproduction. Pork being the same way. I saw pork at like 97 cents a pound. Because of that overproduction that had taken place due to the fact that the prices had gone up after all the hoarding had taken place, or the supply chain breakdown of it, that overinvestment is now has the food production companies in a position in which that they are no longer profitable, and that's why you're seeing them start to fail, or at least to go down, in revenues and profits and stuff like that. But again, if you think about the bullwhip effect, it answers a lot of that. I think the tiny gold is called placer gold. Yes, it is. That's exactly what it's called, All Niner. I've been looking at these retirement visa options. There's a water board that separates gold really well. You need one of those spiral wash thingies. Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of different techniques of doing it, but you got to understand. I mean, this stuff is tiny. I mean, it's almost like to the point that it's hard to see it. I mean, like, I couldn't tell you how many little flakes are in this jar. Oh, wait a minute, there's a bunch of it stuck to the side here. Let me see if I can show you. See that? I can't really. Oops. Anyhow. Alright. You have biological gold in the ocean where you live. The Dungeness crab season will be here in a couple of months. Dungeness will be selling for $10 to $15 a pound. The limits are 10 crabs per day. Yeah. Dungeness crabs being probably one of the best things that you could ever eat out of the ocean. Those things are amazing. Hit the like button. Yes, thank you, Brandon. All right. When the homeless come to your home for food and shelter and there isn't a cop around, we will all sing a different tune. Best to give them help now. People homeless are a big danger to all of us. Do you know anyone that died on the Columbia River Bar? Yeah. I mean, I did I know them personally, like really close? No, but I've known fishermen, who passed away out there, ship sunk or whatever. I know I mean, yeah, I know of a few stories. I still would recommend Thailand, Philippines. Okay. I am still using the toilet papers that I stocked up during 2020 pandemic. Right? And see, now that's the reason why there was a shortage of toilet paper, is for that exact reason. You and a bunch of other people had done the exact same thing. And what's funny about it is that little scenario of the toilet paper shortage, had happened back in the late 70s, early 80s, late 70s. I forget exactly when it happened, but it was because of Johnny Carson telling a joke, right? It started off with a little tiny piece of information that was factual that got blown way out of proportion, and was making fun of it, right? And because everybody heard this, they all started going out there and panicking and buying up all the toilet paper. But it came down to some politician, and I think it was in Wisconsin if I remember right, who was trying to increase like the pulp industry or something. Like his area that he was trying to get the voters, votes from, had a lot of paper mills or pulp production or something like that going on. So he started embellishing this story that there was going to be this pulp shortage, right? And the pulp shortage obviously leading to a toilet paper shortage, and then toilet paper being like, the one thing that everybody absolutely wants to have. And he made fun of that. Johnny Carson said, yeah, there's going to be this toilet paper shortage coming into the future. And everybody heard this and started running out and started buying the toilet paper off the shelves. Well, when everybody starts to buy an over amount like that, instead of just buying what they normally need, all of a sudden that clears out all the shelves and there's panic. Right? People say, oh, I can't get toilet paper. And as soon as it hits the shelves, it gets taken again. Like people buying 3, 4 packages at a time instead of one, then it stays in short supply as manufacturing can't ramp up enough to meet the overzealous demand. Again, it's the bullwhip effect taking place. But that wasn't even because of a toilet paper shortage. It was literally because of a joke, right? And the people that had made that happen, it just kind of almost manifested itself out of nowhere, literally because of this joke that was being told. And then eventually everybody found their position. So thanks for showing it. Pretty cool. Yeah, you bet. No, no, not your problem. I appreciate the $1.99. That's about how much gold is worth in there, because it isn't much. All right. When everybody is dinging for gold, it's good to be in the pick and shovel business. What are modern day picks and shovels? I think modern day picks and shovels is going to be the Uneducated Economist book and workbook. Like, how to understand economics is probably the modern day pick and shovel. And so I'm going to create courses and classes that people can then buy off of me because I don't have anything to sell and I need something to sell. How does that sound? Does that sound good? Wish I would have visited the jungle when I was there. We went straight from Belize City to Kyakulker. If the shit goes down and people become hungry because of shortages, I will be more worried about my neighbors than the homeless people. My neighbors have more guns than I do. Yeah. Well, that's again, like I think probably if you're like I don't know, like I have a hard time like guessing. Like I understand the food shortages that are going to come due to the fact that there's going to be people around the world who are not going to have access to the food like they do in the United States. And so therefore the demand for the food here in the United States is going to be increased from the people who have lack of food outside of the United States. Does that kind of make sense? So the price of our food is going to go up due to the fact that the demand outside of the United States. Anyway, um, but here where I live in the Pacific Northwest, it's really abundant. Like there's a lot of food sources around here. I got the Columbia River, we got a lot of agricultural things going on, the natural just wild resources, like are pretty abundant as far as just eating from the wild, foraging and stuff. It's the ability to preserve that food, I think, is the bigger issue, and it's something I've talked about quite a bit. That if you're going to go into a position in which that there's going to be food shortages coming, you're going to want to know how to preserve food, because preserving food is really where it's going to be the the most in demand skill. Being coming across a lot of food at once is cumbersome. Like, how do you deal with it? Like, all of a sudden, somebody was just like, "Man, I caught a bunch of fish. Here, you want 100 pounds of fish?" Well, what do you do with that? Like, here this fish has been like, we're like you can only eat so much of it. You cook it, and then what do you do with it? If you can't process it, then you're going to end up being in a position in which that fish is no good to you. So it's really being able to process food is probably like the biggest skill that I could see happening if you're worried about food shortages. And canning is probably that biggest one. All right, guys, it's been a long time out here. We've done 2 hours and 7 minutes. It has been absolutely fun. It was a great stream. I got 108 of you watching right now. That was so awesome for 136 likes to get out of that. I always like it when I have more likes than I do viewers. I think that's really cool. I know not everybody can stick around for 2 hours, so we're gonna have a lot of people who come in and out of the stream. $27.34 in super chats. You guys are always very supportive of the channel. I thank you so much for doing that, especially considering YouTube and the algorithm right now and the AdSense and all that is just kind of not really doing it for the channel like it once was, but that's okay. We're not here for the money. We're here to learn, and that's what it's all about. So thank you very much for that support. It makes it very encouraging. And yeah, I hope to see you guys down in Vegas. So definitely take a look at the link down in the description, the Stock Pulse Silver Symposium, where I will be speaking on my understanding of economics. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. So, okay. Thank you, everybody. Uneducated Economist, you let me know.